The ship of Ambassador Skrull entered Earth's orbit silently. It was much larger than any human spacecraft, but made no sound as it pushed through the atmosphere. Skrull watched the blue planet grow bigger on his viewing screen. His six-fingered hand moved across the control panel, zooming in on the land masses below. Such a small world, he said to his aide, yet our reports suggest these creatures fight with unusual skill. The Exilarian Empire had been at war with the Dravid Confederation for over 300 years. Both sides were tired. Both sides needed something new to tip the balance in their favor. The discovery of Earth might be that advantage. Skrull spent several days simply watching his ship's computers gathered information from human broadcasts, internet signals, and military communications. He was most interested in humanity's wars, fighting in the Middle East, border conflicts in Asia, the tactics of special forces in jungle warfare. These beings have not even mastered basic space travel, his science officer noted. Yet they have developed thousands of ways to fight each other. Skrull nodded slowly, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the screens. That is exactly why we need them. 3 months later, the Galactic Council gathered on the neutral world of Proxima Prime. Representatives from 62 space-faring civilizations sat in the great circular chamber. Skrull stood at the center, presenting his case. The humans of Earth show remarkable adaptability in combat situations, he explained, showing video clips of human warfare. Throughout history, they lack our technology but possess a creativity battle that both the Exilarian Empire and the Dravid Confederation have lost. Over centuries of formal warfare, Elder Counselor Vin, one of the oldest members of the council, raised a thin hand. His species was known for their long memory and caution. I must advise against this course of action, Vine said, his voice cracking with age. Our oldest records speak of the danger of involving the adaptable species of Sol 3 in galactic conflicts. There is a warning passed down from the early days of the council. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Dravid representative, a bulky female named Ketra, spoke up. We are to fear creatures who still burn fossil fuels, who have yet to colonize even their nearest moon. Skrull showed more images, humans fighting in desert heat, in Arctic cold, underwater in mountains. They adapt to any environment. They improvise with whatever tools they have. They would make perfect mercenaries in our war. The council voted to approve first contact with Earth, with only Vin and a few others opposing the plan. On Earth, John Harlow was teaching a class at West Point when his phone buzzed. As a retired Marine Corps colonel, he still had contacts in military intelligence. The message was brief. Come to the Pentagon, first contact confirmed. 3 hours later, Harlow sat in a secure briefing room with 20 other military experts and government official. The Secretary of Defense looked pale. They call themselves the Solarian Empire, she said. They've been monitoring us for months. They're offering us advanced technology in exchange for our military expertise and volunteer soldiers. Harlow frowned. They have faster than light travel but need our help fighting wars. Apparently, they've been fighting the same enemy for centuries. They say we have a unique approach to warfare that they find valuable, so they want us as mercenaries, Harlow said flatly. They prefer the term military consultants. The secretary replied, within weeks. World leaders cautiously agreed to limited cooperation. The promise of advanced medical technology, clean energy and space travel was too tempting to refuse. Harlow was appointed to the first contact team when he finally stood face to face with Scarl. The alien ambassador bowed slightly. Your species has much to offer the galaxy, Colonel Harlow. Harlow didn't return the bow. Just remember, Ambassador, humans don't just fight wars. For others, we tend to make them our own. Scarlet's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in his large eyes. That, he said quietly, is exactly what we're counting on. 6 months passed since first contact in the Nevada desert, far from public view. A massive training facility now stood where only sand and scrub brush had been before. The complex had appeared almost overnight, built with Karen technology that could create structures from raw materials in hours rather than months. Kate Morrison walked the length of the shooting range, watching as human soldiers practiced with alien weapons. As a former Navy SEAL with advanced degrees in military strategy, she had been chosen to lead human integration into alien warfare. She stopped behind a young Army surgeon who was firing on-pulse rifle at targets 500 YD away. Try holding it closer to your body, she suggested. Their weapons don't have recoil like ours. The surgeon adjusted his stance and hit the target dead center. Thanks, Commander. These things are weird, but they sure can shoot. Kate nodded and moved on. The adaptability of the human recruits continued to amaze her. The Exilarians had predicted it would take humans years to master their weapon systems. It had taken weeks. In a nearby hangar, Alan Phillips hunched over a holographic display of Illyrian battle cruiser. As the lead human engineer assigned to study alien technology, Alan had already proposed 17 modifications to their ship designs. Exilarian engineers watched with a mixture of interest and alarm as he reconfigured their engine placement. If you move the thrust vectors here and here, Alan said, pointing to the blue hologram, you'll increase maneuverability by about 30%. The senior engineer, a female named Kurvesh, blinked her large eyes rapidly. Their equivalent of a frown, but this design has been standard for over 400 years. Ellen shrugged. Doesn't mean it can't be improved. Later that day, Salarian General Thraz met with Ambassador Scarl in a secure meeting room. The general's normally gray skin had taken on a purple tinge, a sign of stress in their species. These humans learned too quickly, Thraz said, keeping his voice low. They've accomplished in months what takes our species decades. The weapons modifications alone. Scar gestured for calm. This is why we recruited them, old friend, but they don't just use our technology. They change it, improve it, question it. This Phillips human has redesigned systems that our best engineers considered perfect and made them better. Scarl pointed out. That's what concerns me, Fry replied. How long before they surpass us entirely? John Harlow entered the officers' mess hall just as this conversation was taking place. He had spent the day reviewing Salarian battle tactics with Kate Morrison. Both had noticed the same thing. Salarian warfare was formal, almost ritualistic. They fought the same enemy the same way for centuries with little innovation. They've been in a military Stalemate for 300 years, Kate said as she picked her food, the mess all served. Both human and Karen cuisine, though. Few from either species were brave enough to try the other's food. Harlow nodded. They don't adapt, that's why. They wanted us, but there's something else, Kate said quietly. I've been studying the reports of their war with the Dravid. The tactics on both sides are predictable, almost as if neither side really wants to win. You think they're using us? Kate looked around to make sure no aliens were within. I think they wanted a new element in their war, but I'm not sure they understand what they're getting with humans. The next morning, the first human combat unit was declared ready for deployment. 100 soldiers led by Cape Morrison would join a Salarian fleet heading to the contested mining colony at Proxima Centauri. As the soldiers boarded the transport ship, Harlow watched from the command center. Ambassador Garl stood beside him. Your people learned quickly, the ambassador observed. Harlow and LT Duncan GT's eyes remained fixed on the departing troops. That's not all we do quickly, Ambassador. We adapt quickly, we innovate quickly. He turned to face the alien diplomat. And when necessary, we win quickly. Scarl's expression remained unreadable. We shall see. The mining colony of Proxima Centauri floated in space like a metal spider, its 8 arms extended outward from a central hub, each one extracting valuable minerals from the asteroid field surrounding it. For 3 decades, the Dravid Confederation had controlled this strategic resource. Now the Axelarians wanted it back. Lieutenant Samantha Reeves checked her tactical display as the fleet dropped out of faster than light travel. She commanded a squad of 12 humans integrated into the Ilarian assault force. Their job was supposed to be simple: follow Axelarian troops and learn. This is not what we expected, said the Axelarian commander, his voice tight. Intelligence reported 2 Dravid cruisers guarding the colony. I count 6. On the main view screen, 6 massive warships formed a defensive line around the mining facility, each bristled with weapons that could tear their smaller vessels apart. Standard procedure is to retreat and request reinforcements, the commander stated. Samantha frowned. We came all this way just to leave. The battle parameters have changed. The tactical matrix no longer favors engagement. Kate Morrison, who was observing from the command ship, stepped forward. Commander, may I suggest an alternative approach? The Axelarian looked surprised. Carillion military doctrine was clear on what to do when outnumbered. You retreated, you regrouped, you follow the established protocols that had governed their warfare for centuries. We don't need to engage their entire fleet, Kate said. Lieutenant Reeves and her team could take a small craft through the asteroid field. The Dravid won't expect anyone to use such a dangerous route. Impossible, the commander replied. The asteroid density makes navigation. We can do it. Samantha interrupted. Humans are good at flying through tight spaces. We've trained for this. After some argument, the commander reluctantly agreed. While the main carrion fleet held position at the edge of the system, Samantha and her team boarded a small, fast shuttle. The plan was simple but dangerous. Use the asteroid field as cover, reach the mining colony's least defended docking port, and capture their command center. Like threading a needle in a hurricane, muttered Gary Wilson, the team's pilot. As they entered the asteroid field, the Shuttle danced between massive rocks, some as large as mountains, others small, enough to be merely lethal instead of catastrophic if hit. The Dravid sensors were focused outward, watching the Auxiliarian fleet. No one noticed the tiny craft weaving through the asteroids. Behind them, they docked at a maintenance port cut through the airlock and moved silently through the station's corridors. The Dravid, large reptilian beings with armored skin, never expected an attack from inside their own station. Remember, Samantha told her team, we need to capture, not kill, especially any officers. When they reached the command center, they used stun weapons provided by the Auxiliarians. The Dravid fell quickly, taken by surprise. Control room secured. Samantha reported via link to the Ilarian fleet, we've captured the station commander. But it was what they did next that truly shocked the Auxiliarians. Instead of simply holding position, Samantha accessed the colony's defense systems. She broadcasted false orders to the Dravid warships, causing confusion in their ranks. Then she disabled the station's external weapons. What are you doing? Asked the Carrarian tactical officer over the comm. That wasn't part of the mission parameters. Improvising, Samantha replied as she worked. Tell your fleet to move in now. The Dravid ships are out of formation. The Auxiliarian fleet, despite their commander's hesitation, advanced, with the mining colony's defenses disabled and the Dravid fleet in disarray. They quickly gained the upper hand. 2 enemy cruisers were disabled, another destroyed, and the remaining 3 retreated. Back on the command ship, the Solarian officers stared at the humans with new eyes. You captured a command ship intact, one said in disbelief. This has never been done in the history of our war. Kate Morrison smiled slightly. Humans don't just follow plans, we improve them as we go on. Proxima Prime, Elder Vine addressed the Galactic Council again. The ancient texts speak of a species that views the impossible merely as a challenge. I fear we are witnessing the awakening of something we cannot control. 8 months after humans joined the war, everything began to change. The Auxiliarian research center on their home world had never seen such activity. For centuries their technology had advanced at a steady, predictable pace. Now, with humans in their midst, new ideas emerged daily. Dr. Lisa Warren stood before a glowing energy field in the main laboratory. The tall, slender physicist had spent weeks studying Solarian shield technology. Now she was showing the alien scientists something new. Your shields are based on a fixed energy output, she explained, adjusting controls on her tablet. But what if the shield could adapt its strength based on the incoming attack? The leader scientist, Zevnar, watched with growing interest as Lisa demonstrated her prototype. A test beam struck the shield, which immediately adjusted its pattern to counter the specific energy signature. We've combined your energy systems with some theoretical models from Earth physics. Lisa continued. The shield uses 30% less power but is twice as effective against varied attacks. Zevnar's eyes widened. This technology would normally take decades to develop. Lisa shrugged. Sometimes a fresh perspective helps. In another section of the complex, Eric Nelson hunched over a bank of computers. The former cybersecurity expert had been tasked with analyzing Dravid communication systems captured during recent battles. For days he had barely left his workstation, sleeping on a cut In the corner of the lab, Ilarion, communications officer, entered the room. Any progress, Mr. Nelson? Eric looked up, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but bright with excitement. I found a pattern in their encryption. Look here. He pointed to his screen where strings of code scrolled past. The Dravid use a Silic key system that repeats every 14 days. Once you understand the pattern, you can predict their future encryption keys. The officer stared in disbelief. Our cryptographers have studied Dravid communications for 70 years without finding this pattern. That's because you were looking for what you expected to find, Eric said. I had no expectations, so I saw what was actually there. By the end of that week, human innovations had spread to every aspect of the war effort. Carrion ships now carried modified shields based on Lisa's designs. Military communications used new encryption methods developed by human specialists. Even the food served in military mess halls had improved after human nutritionists suggested changes to the bland Karen military rations. Ambassador Scarroll prepared his report for the Galactic Council. He stood in his private chamber dictating to a recording device. The humans are transforming our war effort, he said, but their integration into our military structures is proving problematic. They question orders, suggest alternatives, and operate with a level of individual initiative that disrupts our chain of command. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Most concerning is their rate of technological advancement. In 8 months, they have improved upon designs that our engineers considered perfected. The balance of the war is shifting in our favor, but I must express concern about how quickly humans are mastering our technology. Some are beginning to question who will be teaching whom by the end of this alliance on Earth. John Harlow reviewed progress reports from the human contingent now spread across Salarian space. Each day brought news of another breakthrough, another successful adaptation of alien technology. Harlow felt pride in these achievements, but also growing unease. He called Kate Morrison, who was now stationed on a battle cruiser near the front lines. The Carrarians are starting to worry, he told her over the secure channel. We're changing too much too quickly. Kate's voice came through with a slight delay. They wanted our help. They're getting it. But is that all we're doing? Harlow asked. Helping them. Kate was silent for a moment. You should see what we've discovered about the Dravid, John. This war isn't what we were told. I think both sides have been fighting for so long they've forgotten why they started, and neither seems to know how to stop. Be careful, Kate. We're still the newcomers here. Actually, Kate replied, I think we're becoming something else entirely. We're becoming the game changers. The massive battle over Riel ended with a clear Exilarian victory. For the first time in decades, the Dravid forces retreated completely from a major star system. The success was largely due to the new shield technology and battle tactics introduced by the humans. Now, as the dust settled, Captain Daniel Wright found himself invited to a strategy meeting with the Exilarian High Command. The meeting room was circular with a large holographic display in the center, showing star maps and fleet positions. 12 carrion commanders sat in a perfect circle around it. Daniel, the only human present, stood next to Admiral Krentor. The fleet commander. The Draven have fallen back to these 3 systems, the Admiral said, pointing to red dots on The map standard procedure is to solidify our position at Riel before advancing further. Daniel studied the map after months of fighting alongside the Exilarians. He had learned how they thought. They were methodical, careful, and entirely predictable. So were their enemies. With respect, Admiral Daniel said we should strike now while they're regrouping. If we hit all three systems simultaneously, we could end this campaign in days instead of months. The room fell silent. Such an aggressive move went against thousands of years of Salarian military doctrine. Impossible, said one commander. Our forces would be stretched too thin. We'd be violating the pattern of engagement, said another. Wars are won through carefully planned advances, not reckless attacks. Admiral Krentor raised a hand for silence. Captain Wright, your suggestion is noted but rejected. We will proceed according to established protocol. Daniel left the meeting, frustrated but not surprised. Later in the officers' mess, he found several younger officers who seemed more open to new ideas. Over the next few days, he met with them secretly, explaining his plan in detail. The Dravid expect you to follow your usual patterns, he told them. That's why they always know your next move. But what if just once you did something completely unexpected? Commander Lurvax, who had fought alongside humans at Proxima Centauri, nodded slowly. The High Command will never approve this. Then we don't ask them, Daniel said. We ask forgiveness later after we win. 5 days later, a small fleet of ships departed the main Carrion Armada on what was officially listed as a reconnaissance mission. Daniel and his human team joined Commander Lurvac and several other like-minded Carrions. What happened next would change the course of the war. Instead of conducting reconnaissance, the fleet split into 3 groups and launched surprise attacks on all 3 Dravid strongholds simultaneously. The Dravid, expecting the Exilarians to spend weeks consolidating their position at Riel, were completely unprepared. Within 7 days, all 3 Dravid worlds had been captured. It was the largest Salarian victory in over a century, and it had been accomplished with a fraction of their available forces. When Daniel and Lurvac returned to the main fleet, they were immediately summoned to Admiral Krenner's command room. You disobeyed direct orders, the Admiral said, his voice cold with anger. You risked valuable ships and personnel on an unauthorized operation. We captured 3 key Dragon worlds in a week. Daniel replied calmly. Something your standard tactics would have taken months to achieve, if at all. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Results do not justify insubordination. With respect, Admiral, Lurvac said, stepping forward. In warfare, results are all that matter. The news of the victory spread quickly throughout Salarian space. Though officially reprimanded, Daniel and his allies became heroes to many younger Carrions who had grown tired of the endless, unchanging war. On Proxima Prime, Elder Vine addressed the Galactic Council with growing urgency. The humans do not fight wars as we do. To them, war is not a state of being but a problem to be solved definitively and as quickly as possible. They will not maintain the equilibrium of this conflict as we have for centuries. A Dravid representative spoke up. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach to the humans. They are becoming too influential in Salarian military operations. Vin looked at him with ancient knowing eyes. I fear It may already be too late for that. Major Olivia Clark stood alone in the communication room of the recently captured Dravid outpost. She had told the Axelarian guards she needed to check the enemy's equipment for useful intelligence. In reality, she had a different plan entirely. For weeks she had been studying Dravid language and culture, unlike most Carians who view their enemies as nothing more than targets. Olivia wanted to understand them now. With access to Dravid communication system, she had her chance. She activated the console and sent a simple message on an open frequency. I am human, not Karen. I wish to talk. For several minutes there was no response. Then the screen flickered and a Dravid face appeared. The alien had rough gray-green skin and large yellow eyes. Why would a human wish to speak with those they fight? The Dravid asked in heavily accented common language. To understand why we are fighting, Olivia replied. This war has lasted for centuries. There must be more to it than the Axelarians have told us. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. The Dravid, who identified himself as Subcommander Tekra, revealed that many Dravid worlds suffered under their military leadership. Their society was built around the war, just as Solarian society was. Our leaders tell us Solarians want to destroy our way of life, Tekra said. Is this what they tell you? They tell us your people want to control all resources in this sector of space, Olivia replied. Tech made a sound that might have been a laugh, and yet ordinary people on both sides just want to live in peace. Over the next week, Olivia had several more secret conversations with Tekra and other Dravid willing to talk. She learned that many Dravid colonies were forced to send resources and soldiers to support a war most of them no longer believed in. When she finally presented her findings to the Axelarian High Command, their reaction was swift and severe. Unauthorized communication with the enemy is treason, General Fraz declared. 2 Xelarian guards moved to seize her. Wait, said John Harlow, who had arrived from Earth for a progress report. Major Clark was gathering intelligence. Let her speak. Reluctantly, the Solarians allowed Olivia to present her discoveries. She showed recordings of her conversations with various Dravid. Many of their worlds want peace, she explained. Their military leadership keeps the war going because their entire economic system depends on it, just like yours does. The room erupted in angry shouts. General Thraz ordered her taken away for punishment, but Harlow stepped between her and the guards. Is she wrong? He asked loudly. This war has gone on for centuries with neither side gaining a real advantage until we arrived. Harlow turned to Ambassador Scarl, who had been watching silently. We've studied your history. Both the Axelarian Empire and the Driv Confederation build your economies around military production. Both your societies are structured to support eternal conflict. You don't fight to win, you fight to keep fighting. Scarl's expression remained neutral. You speak of matters you don't understand, Colonel Harlow. I understand perfectly, Harlow replied. You brought humans into your war because it had reached a stalemate, but you didn't want us to end it. You wanted us to balance it again. The news of Olivia's contact with the Dravid spread quickly through the human forces, while that Solarian High Command tried to contain the information. They couldn't stop humans from talking to each other. Soon rumors began circulating that humans were speaking with both sides of the conflict on the Galactic Council. Emergency sessions were called. The Dravid representative accused the Exilarians of using humans to upset the balance of power. The Exilarian representative countered that the Dravid were trying to turn humans against them. Elder Vine watched the arguments with sad eyes. The humans are doing what they always do, he said quietly to his aide. They're questioning, they're looking for the truth, and I fear neither side is prepared for what happens when they find it. Back on the front lines, Kate Morrison received a coded message from John Harlow. The war is a lie. Spread the word. It's time for humans to take action. The main carrion communications hub orbited their home world like a silver ring. All military orders, news broadcasts, and official information flowed through the station. Security was tight with only authorized personnel allowed access to its critical systems, which is why the carrions were shocked when they lost control of it completely. Kate Morrison stood in the hub's central control room, surrounded by her team of human technicians and a small group of sympathetians and Dravid who had joined their cause. All systems secured, reported Paul Garcia, her communications expert. We control every broadcast channel across both empires. Kate nodded. Send the signal to the other teams across Karen and Dravid space. Similar scenes were playing out. Human forces, along with their alien allies, seized control of key facilities, broadcast centers, and transfer stations. It was not a violent takeover. In most cases, they simply walked in, using access codes provided by sympathizers. We're ready to broadcast, said Lena Chen, adjusting the camera. Live to every world in both empires. Kate took a deep breath and stepped in front of the camera. People of the Solarian Empire and Dravid Confederation, my name is Kate Morrison. I am human. What I am about to tell you has been hidden from you for centuries. She began to explain the truth they had uncovered, how the war had become a tool to control both civilizations, how resources that could improve lives were instead channeled into endless conflict, and how leaders on both sides maintain the fighting to preserve their power. We have proof, she said as images began to appear beside her. These are communications between your leaders. Spanning 200 years, they show coordinated efforts to ensure the war never ends and never threatens either side too much. On thousands of worlds, billions of carrions and Dravid watched in stunned silence. Meanwhile, John Harlow led another crucial operation on a neutral trading station near the border between the two empires. He established the first official meeting between ordinary Solarian and Dravid citizens. This is now a demilitarized zone, he announced to the frightened aliens. No weapons, no uniforms, just people talking to people. At first, the Exilarians and Dravid stayed on opposite sides of the large meeting hall, watching each other wearily. Then a young Dravid female stepped forward. My name is Me, she said. I lost my parent to Axilarian bombing raid when I was a child. I was taught to hate all Axilarians, but I am tired of hating. An older Exilarian male walked slowly to meet her. I am Trevkor. I have fought in this war for 40 years. I no longer remember why. Similar meetings were happening at trading posts and border stations throughout the region. Humans helped establish these neutral zones, places where the people of both empires could meet without their military. Leaders present on the Exilarian home world. The High Command responded with fury. These humans have betrayed us. General Fraz declared they must be stopped, arrested, executed for treason. But their orders went unheeded. Too many of their own people, especially the younger generation, had embraced the human initiative. Streets filled with protesters demanding an end to the war. Military personnel abandoned their post. The Dravid leadership faced similar rebellion when they ordered ships to attack the human-controlled communications hub. Crew members refused. In the Galactic Council chamber, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted accusations at each other while Elder Vine sat quietly observing. Finally, he raised his hand and the chamber gradually fell silent. The ancient warning was clear, he said, his voice tired but firm. Humans do not merely join conflicts, they transform them according to their own vision. They have changed the nature of our war because they cannot comprehend fighting without purpose. A younger council member asked, "What can we do to stop them?" Elder Vine smiled slightly. Perhaps the question should be, do we want to stop them across both empires? The movement grew. Talarians and Dravid, who had never met face to face, began communicating directly, sharing stories, questioning why they had been enemies for so long. And everywhere, humans encouraged them, guided them, showed them possibilities they had never imagined. This wasn't what either side expected when they asked for our help, Kate told John during a rare quiet moment. They wanted better soldiers. Instead, they got peace. 3 years had passed since humans first joined the war between the Exilarians and the Dravid. Now they gathered on the neutral world of Proxima Prime to witness something no living being in either empire had ever seen: the formal end of the conflict. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from both empires sat side by side, no longer separated by ancient hatreds. At the center table, the newly elected leaders of both civilizations prepared to sign the peace treaty. John Harlow watched from his position as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. Beside him stood Kate Morrison, now head of human diplomatic relations with alien worlds. "Did you ever think we'd see this day?" Kate asked quietly. "Not when we started," John admitted. "I thought we were being recruited for someone else's war. I never imagined we'd be the ones to end it." The new Carsalian Prime Minister, a reformer named Trelnek, rose to speak. "For 1,000 years our people have known nothing but war. We built our society around it, structured our economy to sustain it, and taught our children that it was necessary. It took outsiders to show us the truth." The Dravid leader, Sector Commander Ravik, spoke next. "We had forgotten how to question. We had forgotten how to change. The humans reminded us of these things. They showed us that perpetual conflict is not inevitable. Together they signed the document that officially ended the war." Applause thundered through the hall, with many Salarians and Dravid openly weeping with relief and hope. After the ceremony, the Galactic Council convened a special session. Elder Vin, now nearing the end of his long life, addressed the assembly. "Long ago, our ancestors left us a warning about the species from Sol 3. They knew what we failed to remember: that humans are not like us. They do not accept what is. They constantly ask why, and then They ask why not, he gestured toward John Harlow. When we brought humans into our war, we thought we were gaining soldiers. Instead, they became mediators, truth seekers, and ultimately peacemakers. The council voted unanimously to adopt a new protocol, which was immediately broadcast to all spacefaring civilizations. The species of Sol 3, known as humans, must never be recruited into external conflicts. Their involvement does not escalate wars, it ends them, often in ways unforeseen by all parties. When the vote concluded, John Harlow approached the speaker's platform. As Earth's ambassador, he had the right to address the council. You invited us to join your war, he said, his voice calm but firm. We chose instead to end it. Humanity will always choose resolution over perpetual conflict. Remember this before you call upon us again. In the years that followed, both the Axelarian Empire and the Dravid Confederation underwent massive changes. Military production facilities were converted to create goods that improved lives rather than ended them. Young Carians and Dravid grew up knowing each other as friends rather than enemies. Humans, once seen as merely useful mercenaries, became respected throughout the galaxy as diplomats and problem solvers. Other species, some engaged in their own ancient conflicts, watched the transformation with interest and concern. On a garden terrace overlooking the Galactic Council building, Kate Morrison met with John Harlow 6 years after they first arrived in alien space. I heard rumors of another war, she said, in the Andromeda sector, been going on for 5 centuries. John raised an eyebrow. Are they asking for our help? Not officially, Kate replied with a small smile, but several representatives have been asking questions about human diplomatic methods. John looked out at the stars visible in the night sky. You know what they say about us now, that we're dangerous because we don't accept things as they are. Is that such a bad reputation to have? No, John said thoughtfully. It's exactly who we are. We see problems and we fix them, not because we're asked to, but because we can't help ourselves. Kate laughed. So much for being mercenaries. We were never really mercenaries, John replied. We were always going to be something more. The galaxy just wasn't ready to admit it. Across the galaxy, species that had watched the end of the 1,000-year war began to look at their own conflicts with new eyes. The humans had shown what was possible.